Not so many Americans are feeling passionately about it ahead of the 4th of July. Numbers from Gallup find 39% of U.S. adults are extremely proud to be American. It's about unchanged from last year's record low. Was it something she said?
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder.
Princess Leia's dress from the original Star Wars movie pulled from the auction block after bringing in a top bid of $975 million. That's short of the seller's minimum. This is CBS News.
Need to hire quality candidates fast? You need Indeed, the end-to-end hiring solution. Attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
News is brought to you by Gingras, Thompson & Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in southeast Wisconsin. Shifting winds are bringing some smoke relief to Waukesha, Milwaukee, and the entire area.
With the airflow switching around to more of a westerly direction in the mid and upper levels, that may help to shun some of the direct feed of the smoke.
That's meteorologist Paul Collar with the National Weather Service. Wildfires are still burning in Canada, but shifting winds and the chance of rain is cutting down on the air quality impact. A 72-year-old on a scooter was killed in a Waukesha crash yesterday. Police say at around 9 a.m., the incident happened near Salesville Road and Highway 59. At this point, investigators aren't sure whether the driver, who was wearing a helmet, lost control or was trying to avoid another vehicle. The Waukesha Police Major Crash Task Force is currently investigating. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The law firm of Gingras, Thompson & Walks has a track record of making life-changing positive differences for their clients. $5.25 million to a woman who suffered brain injuries and her husband passed away when struck by a drunk driver. $1 million to 3 different individuals injured by drunk drivers. $1 million settlement to a man injured in a motorcycle accident. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks, 855-954-1186.
Calling to win, Gingras, Thompson & Walks, GTWLawyers.com.
The summer heat can really get to you. Hot, sticky, you feel like you're melting. But Wauwatosa, coming in July, it'll be easy to cool off at Joy Ice Cream Social. This family-run, family-friendly business is more than just ice cream. It's a cool community hangout spot for friends and family. Let's talk about the ice cream. 16 delicious rotating flavors direct from the chocolate shop in Madison. The perfect way to stay sweet and cool this summer. Opening in July. Joy Ice Cream Social. Scoop, snack, shop. 8334 West North Avenue. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
It's go time at Chula Vista. Time for you to discover Wisconsin's most complete resort experience. 200,000 square feet of water park fun. New thrills like zipline racing, 18 holes of classic golf, Wisconsin's #1 steakhouse, hundreds of newly renovated rooms. Check it out at ChulaVistaResort.com.
Chula Vista Resort is one of the nation's top 10 indoor water parks per USA Today's 2023 Reader's Choice Awards. Find out why at ChulaVistaResort.com.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always...
But we all prove that it's not always nice. But even when you're upset and even when you're ticked off, you still come from a place of compassion and love. Whereas I'm just old bitter.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada. Hello, Wisconsin!
Well, on my drive to work today, there was a bit of breaking news. And I'm still reading as much as I can, as quickly as I can before we got on air. But this morning, in the last hour, the Supreme Court struck down admissions programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina that relied in part on racial considerations, saying they violate the Constitution. Not surprisingly, the vote split along ideological grounds, with Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. writing for the conservative members in the majority and the liberals dissenting. And I guess I would love just your reactions if you have them. 844-967-2789. But I guess the overriding question I have is this fair? And obviously, that is a word that is up to you to define. But whenever we talk about, I guess it's DI. Now they've ruined that term now. But
by design.
Yes, I know. But it's in. I think of the monopoly analogy that gets thrown out as far as how race has worked in this country, and the absurdity to me of flipping it in the attempt to give a hand up, like instead of a hand up to people. It's now seen as like reverse racism or whatever, when in reality, white people and white men in this country have been playing Monopoly for centuries. And in those centuries, they've been able to accrue a lot of wealth and a lot of status and run the show. And basically, it's only been a couple decades since, more specifically, I would say, Black people have been able to even enter the game. And the expectation that, well, it's your fault. It's your fault that you don't have as much on Park Ave.
Didn't work hard enough.
You didn't work hard enough. Doesn't matter that you came to the game late. Doesn't matter that the couple times you tried to come to the game ahead of time, we destroyed the wealth that you had made in Oklahoma, or the communities you had built and the businesses you had built by driving and building highways through them. That doesn't matter. You know, the fact that we've actually legally kept you from building wealth through property ownership, through redlining, you know, you're in the game now. So now everyone has to be treated fairly. And so the thing is, it's not like every person of color who applied to any of these universities, like, well, you're Black, so you're getting into school. Like, the audacity that you think that's how these admissions worked is misguided, is an understatement. But we're here. And I think the thing that's most laughable to me is the fact that we're not ending affirmative action in total. We're because I'm pretty sure they've said nothing about legacy students.
I was going to mention that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this doesn't say anything about, well, if your dad went to this school,
your grandpa went to this
or
school,
or your parents donated, or there's special recommendations and all of the, a lot of other preferences for legacies and donors and employee families, and all of that are still allowed. And so it's not that there's not preferential. This is knocking down all preferential treatment, and schools have to stick to objective, numbered meritocracy criteria. It's just limiting their ability to consider race, despite the fact that race has been a major consideration for the livelihoods of people in this country since its inception. 844-967-2789. The Supreme Court ruling. I guess any reactions you have, or bigger questions, just is it fair? 844-96-PARTY. Jane Manera, how you feeling?
It's so disappointing. But again, look at the Supreme Court that we have. This is why they're there. This is why they were, and certainly the last three, Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, this is why they're there and were put there to reverse things. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised.
And that's the thing. I'm not sure I think people were bracing as we were just saying, I think earlier this week, how the rulings that have come out so far for this session from the Supreme Court don't feel as devastating as it did last year of just like thing after thing after thing across the board. Um, and maybe it's similar to last year where they're just, they save kind of the big ones for last, but it's it's wildly disappointing. And I would imagine that there's other things that schools can, when you think about an essay, and a lot of schools are already moving away from ACT and SAT scores, and the schools that are actually committed to diversity, you can look at income levels. There are other things as far as trying to recruit and incorporate people from different backgrounds, and so it's not so homogenous at campus. But it's just, I think symbolically, just what this also means just feels crappy.
844-967-2789, 844-96 Party. Tom from LA joining us. Hey, Tom, what do you think?
Well, first off, we the people, all of us, ultimately are the government, and we must remember that the power lies within our hands one way or another. Second, this does show the consequences of, not getting a democratic president in place to actually be able to get some justices on the Supreme Court that are not just from the Heritage Foundation or from the Federal Society. Also, I would really recommend anyone that's out there, and I honestly, sincerely want to reach out to my white brothers and sisters. Please look up Jane Elliott. Watch
She's great.
Jane Elliott, because you know what? She puts it as clearly as anybody in terms of race and what it really means, about, basically starting 10 steps back before the other person. And I would like to say also for every white person out there, just for once, would you like to change places in your life with a black person? And I think there you'll have your answer in terms of what it is that you feel. This is such a stain on our society today, and this basically just again empowers white privilege and empowers people that are white, that we are, I would say, the superior ones, or whatever it might be. I think this is absolutely crazy. I'm sure George War Criminal Bush, when he got into Yale, didn't get in there completely on his grades, like Jane and Chris were saying. This is crazy. This is all crazy, and we knew that it was going to kind of happen because of the makeup of the Supreme Court. So everybody, please get out and vote in your next elections and vote Democratic, because you can look at the history of the different types of people that are actually appointed to the Supreme Court and what it is that they actually have done, with the exception maybe of Sandra Day O'Connor. Please, just everyone, and check your white privilege at the door. I know we don't see it, but watch Jane Elliott. That's all I gotta say. Go to YouTube, watch Jane Elliott, and you'll get a little bit better understanding of what white privilege really is.
Absolutely. Thanks for the call, Tom.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Are you familiar with Jane Elliott?
The name sounds familiar.
She is visually, you probably have seen videos, because she used to be on Oprah. Like, she had a whole pretty viral, I think at the time, where segment on Oprah where she split everybody up in the crowd. It was mostly white women, between the blue-eyed people and the brown-eyed people.
Oh, interesting.
And she did a whole race exercise, but instead of race, it was your eye color and just how quickly people fell in. Like, she basically treated people differently, and the blue-eyed people were special, and
Sure.
and like how the brown people started to resent that. The brown-eyed people started to resent that. But she has she's been an anti-racism educator for a very long time. She's a white woman, white, and now she's like 90, still alive.
Wow.
And pulls no punches. She has no patience.
I love her already.
Yeah, and so she's really great. And I'll end on this as far as the 10 steps back exercise. And I remember the first time and there's a lot of variations of this exercise, and it's kind of similar to the Monopoly analogy. But the first time I ever heard to do this, you basically, everyone stands in a line and there's a bunch of prompts. You start before the prompts are read, you're all in the same spot. And then depending on what the prompts are, you take a step forward, take a step back, take 2 steps forward, take 2 steps back. And all the forward steps are, your parents are still together. You have books in the house. Your parents went to college. Your parents have master's degrees. And a bunch of different kind of things you don't necessarily think about.
Consider as
far as helping you do better in life. Your parents taught you about budgeting.
Taught you how to use a checkbook.
You've never been on food stamps. And then for obviously the opposite type of things, your parents don't speak English. Your parents are immigrants. Your parents didn't go to college. Your parents didn't graduate high school. You take steps back and you just see how far apart in any given group you end up starting from, right? And in that version, all you can see is the person ahead of you.
Oh, wow.
And so you're comparing yourself to the person ahead of you and not even thinking about the person behind you. So you got to take a break, but taking your reactions to this morning's Supreme Court ruling, 844-967-2789.
When it comes to achieving successful jury verdicts and settlements, one law firm stands out above the rest. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. A $6.2 million settlement for a woman permanently paralyzed as a result of medical malpractice. $4.9 million to members of a family injured due to the negligence of a truck driver and his employer. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks today. 855-954-1186.
All into it. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. GTWlawyers.com.
With one call, the Civic Media Network of stations can deliver your business's message to the entire state of Wisconsin or your hometown. Marketing plans that work for your business. One call can do it all. Civic Media, 608-819-8255.
Hey, this is Lindsay Keinert at 540 WAUK The Shaw. At Civic Media, we love our local communities and want to share your stories. Submit your local event and we'll let our listeners know. Email me, Lindsay Keinert, at info@civicmedia.us. That's info@civicmedia.us.
It's not just about the barrels in construction. Highway projects are community investments. So do your part. Stay alert, eliminate distractions, and mind your speed. Every driver makes a difference. Sponsored by the Wisconsin DOT.
Weather brought to you by FreshFin, bringing you a fresh and healthy fast casual experience. Seafood, chicken, pork, or tofu. The bowl options at FreshFin are endless. Check them out at the corners of Brookfield, Bayshore Mall, East Side, and 3rd Ward, or online at freshfin.com.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Chance for isolated thunderstorms this afternoon. Otherwise, overcast skies. Highs around 87. South winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight. Chance for scattered thunderstorms. Lows around 64. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times again tomorrow. Slight chance for scattered rain showers. High temperatures reach up to 89. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently,
Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Yes, I've been running with other women, but I don't love nobody else.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And in the next segment, I'm very excited because Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley is going to be joining us to talk about where we're at with the vote on the increase in the sales tax. He is selling it. He is putting out a sales hat because, as there is plenty of reasons not to like the deal that got signed as far as its arguable overreach into local control, and both on the Milwaukee Common Council and on the county board, I think there's still objections and frustrations with it. But as Dan Schaefer has put it, we basically need this to live to live to fight another day.
Exactly.
And so he's going to join us. And I think instead of all doom and gloom, we're also going to touch on, if Milwaukee County gets it becomes more financially stable, what's possible? I think because of this looming fiscal cliff, both at the county level and at the city level, there is so much scarcity of thinking about investments and how to make the city better. But if there was control and there is like financial stability, what is actually possible, which I think is a little bit more on the optimism side, which is something we try to infuse in every show on As Goes Wisconsin.
When possible.
When possible. But certainly today, at least from my point of view, this Supreme Court ruling is wildly disappointing. And at the break, our friend Greg Brock forwarded me a snippet of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent. And I'm reading this live, so excuse me if I trip over my words, but let's see what she had to say. With let them eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces, quote, color blindness for all, end quote, by legal fiat. By deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. And having so detached itself from this country's actual past and present experiences, the court has now been lured into interfering with the crucial work that UNC and other institutions of higher learning are doing to solve America's real-world problems. No one benefits from ignorance. Although formal race-linked legal barriers are gone, race still matters to the lived experiences of all Americans in innumerable ways. And today's ruling makes things worse, not better. The best that can be said of the majority's perspective is that it proceeds ostrich-like from the hope that preventing consideration of race will end racism. But if that is, then the rest of it got cut off. But
I know, right?
And she had recused herself from the Harvard case.
Oh, wow.
I'm assuming it's because she went to Harvard. But it's a setback. It's a major setback. And I don't know what this will look like for, a place like UW-Madison, which we were just talking about yesterday, as far as, what should be the considerations. Should the top 5% of every high school senior be promised a spot at
Right.
UW-Madison? But, Madison is a place that strives and fails to have more diversity. Like, I don't think that despite the fact that I think Wisconsin's racial breakdown is like 6% is Black statewide, and I think only 3, like the highest it's ever, the UW-Madison campus has ever been, is 3% Black.
Wow.
And you got to think about how many of those are athletes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But we got a call on the phone.
Beverly from Richland Center joining us. Good morning, Beverly. What do you think?
I agree with you that there is nothing about this decision that's fair or right. But what I'm thinking is, maybe just as importantly, it's not smart.
Mm-hmm.
Because the quality and the success of our democracy depends upon quality education of the public. And there's nothing that improves the level of education in a classroom setting than diversity. I taught at the university level for almost 40 years.
Oh, wow.
And the more diversity that's in the classroom, whether it's young or old or Black or white or brown or rich or poor, that diversity adds a level of quality to the classroom that can't be replaced.
And Beverly, how would you define quality? Like, can you give an example of what that looks like to you, or what it looks like in your classroom?
Well, it has to go way, way beyond just the learning of facts. It has to be students learning how to analyze and deal with information and express it and have dialogues about it in a logical, rational way.
Yeah. And also maybe empathy. learning what it's like to
Be in someone else's
yourself in
shoes?
someone else's shoes that you haven't considered their perspective before. But thanks so much for the call, Beverly, and that perspective. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to talk about this as the day goes on. Unfortunately, we have a jam-packed show today.
Yes, we do.
And unfortunately, that's a good thing. It is a good thing. But as far as our ability to dive deeper on this topic, we will have to table it for tomorrow, maybe for tomorrow. But also, I think we're talking to a professor from UW-Madison who is a legal scholar about all of the cases and everything, all the rulings that come out. So we'll have more time to talk about this tomorrow. So I see people calling on the line right now. Unfortunately, we have to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to have a guest. So sorry we could not take your calls, but keep calling keep calling in general because we love hearing from you when we talk about these topics. All right, we got to take another break, but when we come back, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley will be here. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Your mama said, son, don't call my daughter no more. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Before you accuse me, take a look at yourself. Yes, I've been running with other women, but I don't love nobody else.
Summer 540 AM WAUK has a new lineup at 12:15 Wisconsin Roundtable. 1 to 3 The Todd Alba Show on 540 AM WAUK.
CBS News special report. In a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court has ruled colleges and universities cannot consider who to admit and who not to based on an applicant's race. Former University of Michigan Dean Evan Kamenker.
Universities, including private universities now, can no longer take race into account, even as a small factor in their admissions programs. This is actually the second time then in 2 years, including Roe v. Wade, that the court has overruled a 50-year-old precedent that had such significant impact on our society.
The opinion was authored by Chief Justice John Roberts. Correspondent Major Garrett.
Quote, Harvard's and UNC's, meaning University of North Carolina's, admissions programs violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment.
The Supreme Court has also ruled in favor of a former mail carrier, an evangelical Christian, who accused the Postal Service of religious discrimination after he refused to work on Sundays. CBS News special report. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
News is brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in Southeast Wisconsin. Concrete has been poured in what will be the base to a memorial for the victims of the Waukesha Christmas Parade attack. The city of Waukesha has confirmed the completion of the foundation for the Main Street Christmas Parade Memorial, with a dedication ceremony scheduled for November 21st. Due to the smoky air caused by the wildfires, the Milwaukee County Zoo relocated most of its animals indoors to protect them from the poor air quality yesterday. The only animals remaining outside were the giraffes. The zoo anticipates that some of the animals may be able to return outside today. The expiration of the air quality advisory is at noon.
It's been kind of a slow process here to see much in the way of improvement.
That's meteorologist Paul Collar with the National Weather Service. Summerfest resumes, and it still could be a little smoky tonight. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The law firm of Gingras Thompson and Walks has a track record of making life-changing positive differences for their clients. $5.25 million to a woman who suffered brain injuries and her husband passed away when struck by a drunk driver. $1 million to 3 different individuals injured by drunk drivers. $1 million settlement to a man injured in a motorcycle accident. Call Gingras Thompson and Walks, 855-954-1186.
All into it, Gingras Thompson and Walks, GTWLawyers.com.
The Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Why a RICO charge, counselor? What's that mean to the layperson?
It was written for organized crime, racketeer, influenced, and corrupt organizations.
Act. That's where RICO comes from. The notion that you've got an entity whose purpose is to try to perpetuate some crime. It's more than just a singular event. It is a composite of kind of a corporate conspiracy doing things toward this illegal end.
Weekday afternoons from 4 until 6 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app. The Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Gary from Sussex. Hey, Gary.
Whose birthday is it? Is it both you guys' birthday or is it Dom's or Mike's?
It's my birthday today. Mike's was 2 days ago.
I'm going to sing a happy birthday, and I'm going to sing it the right way. Happy birthday to you, Mr. President of his radio station and his sidekick.
The Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Weekday afternoons from 4 until 6 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app.
Thank you for listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Now join us anytime by finding and following our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram pages. You'll also...
I am Kristin Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And the shared revenue deal and the potential for a new sales tax in the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County has been a windy, weedy saga to try to track and put into layman's terms if you work in the media. But we've done our best. But we may soon be approaching the light at the end of the tunnel. So we are very excited to welcome our next guest, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, to talk about how we got here, what still needs to happen, and how many gray hairs you've gotten over the last, I imagine it's at least a couple.
Maybe, possibly.
Well, I guess before we dive into that, just because we were just touching on it, I don't even know if you've had a chance to dive into it. The news broke literally as I was driving to Waukesha this morning. But do you have any immediate reactions as far as the Supreme Court ruling?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Supreme Court ruling basically struck down affirmative action for college admissions. And to be quite honest with you, it's mind blowing. I think when you look at the data, it still shows that people of color, women, so on and so forth, the list goes on and on, still needs access to opportunities. Whether we're talking about employment, whether we're talking about education, we know that we still have a long way to go. Yes, we can talk about where we've come from, but as America, as a country, we are not in the place where we need to be. So I am disappointed to see this ruling, but it lets you know that we still have a fight ahead of us. And so it's about bringing more people to the table to figure out how we change things for our own future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to the topic that we want to talk about, that we invited you to talk about. So I guess, could you remind our listeners where we are in the process and what it could mean for Milwaukee?
Absolutely. So a couple of weeks ago, the Governor Evers, signed into law the shared revenue bill. And what this shared revenue bill does, Act 12, if I'm not mistaken, it increases shared revenue for all local municipalities and counties all across the state, something that many local municipalities have been asking for many, many years. Quite honestly, probably about 2 decades. But for the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County specifically, it has given us a tool to actually capture our own economic activity by allowing us to increase our sales taxes to put right back into our programs. And so where we are today is that the City Common Council, as well as the Milwaukee County Board, now has to vote on this piece of legislation. Now, we know that there was a lot of policy pieces also within this bill, but those have already become law. And many of those policies, give many of us heartburn. But what's in front of us right now is just the ability to utilize this tool so we can invest back into our Milwaukee County residents.
So for you, just to be clear, it's even with the, let's say, controversial strings attached that have come with this, you are still charging forward this, like, full support, like, we got to get this done.
I mean, we have to get this done. I mean, for us as a county, right, when we think about DEI, those programs, those laws does not affect Milwaukee County. We're still going to be able to have our Office of Equity. We're still going to be able to do our minority contracting the way that we do it. But I will say, when we think about, again, with these policies decisions, as I stated before, yes, nobody wants to see this. We should have been able to have a clean bill. But when you are working through a legislature, a divided government, And I would argue that this is probably one of the largest bipartisan bills that we have seen in many decades, definitely within my lifetime. And so with these things becoming law, we have to focus on what is in front of us. And so if we want to increase and improve the quality of life for our residents, for our visitors, for our workers, it's important that we vote and pass this deal for our residents.
Our guest is Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley. David, I think it's important for people to remember, too, that deferred maintenance, I can remember when Scott Walker was county executive and they were putting off repairs to things. So this, like you said, this is a decades-long mess in the making.
I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, we're talking about $1 billion worth of deferred maintenance. And our parks department alone is probably about a $500 million itself, $500 million when it comes to deferred maintenance. And when you think about the finances that we are collecting, a third of the property tax revenue that we collect goes towards the pension alone. And so it is our hope that with the sales tax, we'll be able to buy down the pension, but also have enough financial flexibility to actually invest in programs like parks, like transit, like youth services, senior services, disability services, public safety, because we are part of the nerve of the public safety continuum, especially when you think about how we support courts, DAs, judges, public defenders, even our sheriff's department. And so these dollars are going to be extremely critical. And when you think about the next few years with the proper planning, you will see the increase in these programs and services that many of our residents deserve to have and quite frankly need.
So as far as right now, what are the kind of final from the county's standpoint? Because obviously there's also, this is in parallel happening with the city and the common council. What are kind of the final obstacles, objections? What are you hearing from county board members or even voters right now?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of confusion, right? We want to make sure that people understand that what's in front of the common council and the county board is just the financial tool needed to invest in our community. The policy pieces that are in there, I think not just the common council and the county board, but many residents, not just here in the Milwaukee County, but across the state, don't like these policy provisions. But that's not what's in front of us. And so as we begin to have conversations with county board supervisors and begin to talk about what we'll be able to do with these dollars, people are open-minded, but also understand that the fiscal cliff that we will be seeing in the next 5 years is just not sustainable. We would have had to probably cut about a quarter of our workforce and really have to cut to the bone or cut major limbs, major services in a sense, because those are the things that are non-mandated. Because as an extension of the state, there are certain things that we have to do because the state says that we do. But we also have non-mandated programs that so many people rely on, and it's a part of the quality of life. I believe in our county park system. I believe it's the crown jewel of Milwaukee County. Yeah. We need to make sure that that's there. Our transit system, we need to make sure that that's there. But those services, those amenities are non-mandated. So it's important that we get the financial freedom, that flexibility that we need to invest in those programs and services.
And I would say in no time, obviously in the summer, it always is the easiest to highlight, but I would challenge any other major metropolitan area with their parks versus our parks. Like, we are a green city, and I don't think people realize that if that goes away, how much we lose, because it's unbelievable how many parks that we have access to. So one thing, because I know one of the main, always what comes up with a sales tax is the argument that it's regressive, and it is. But the thing that I feel like isn't getting enough attention is how many people who don't live in Milwaukee enjoy Milwaukee. Correct. So the amount of people who come in to work and commute there every day, the amount of people who come in for a Bucks game or a Brewers game, the amount of people who are coming here for the RNC. Right. 2 years later, the amount of people who are going to be here for the draft, who are inevitably, even though that's in Green Bay, there's not enough hotels up there, so they're definitely staying in Milwaukee.
And flying in Milwaukee.
You're flying into Milwaukee. And so the amount of, I mean, think about had we had this sales tax during the Bucks runoff finals.
Absolutely.
And why is there not more attention being made on, like, this also brings in money from the people who use our city, who don't pay into our city, but benefit from it?
Thank you. I mean, like, seriously, thank you. Because, people talk about this being regressive, you're right. But at the end of the day, what's really regressive is, as a county, we provide the health and human service programs and services that people need. And so when you think about it, we are the safety net. So what's regressive is not being able to have a bus system that's going to get people to class. It's not going to get people to their healthcare appointments. It's not going to get people to their employment opportunities or help expand their employment opportunities in being able to go all across Milwaukee County and in some cases outside the county. So when we think about regressiveness, the regressiveness about this would be if we had to eliminate and reduce the programs and services that keep people safe. Whether we're talking about the violence in the community by investing in programs like youth mentoring or investing in mental health services within Milwaukee County, we wouldn't be able to do that. Without additional funds, Milwaukee County for 2 years in a row, we have the title of having the lowest unsheltered homeless population per capita in the country due to how much we've been able to invest in housing first. We wouldn't be able to do that moving forward without these additional revenues. And so the regressive nature would really come from the fact that we would have to eliminate so many programs and services that benefit some of our most vulnerable community members throughout the county. That would have been regressive. But the other thing is that we have to understand at least 25% of the sales tax that's going to be collected are going to be collected from people who don't even live in Milwaukee County. Mm-hmm. So there's so many folks who live, who work here, who may come to visit. And when they spend those dollars don't go back into the programs and services that they're able to utilize. For example, public safety or EMS, right? Or making sure that we can continue to have, smooth streets, right? We need to make sure that we can capture those dollars, leverage our own economic activity to make sure that our residents are benefiting from it.
Now, I have to ask more of a personal question. We'll see how freely you feel to answer this. But as far as the good faith negotiations that have gone in, because I know for you and Mayor Johnson, you guys are big proponents of getting the RNC here. So the Republicans are coming and they're bringing their convention here. But as far as with the frustrations of these strings attached, I think if I am remembering this correctly from yesterday, there was some bubble over of one of our state senators yesterday being pretty frustrated with this resentment of like suburbs versus Milwaukee and Republicans and how they treat Milwaukee. And with so much good faith that I feel like at least from what I could tell from the outside, you and Mayor Johnson went into trying to build relationships that haven't been there for a long time with Milwaukee and the state, or at least the GOP in the Capitol. Like, do you still feel positively about those relationships and the bridges that you're building with them?
One of my favorite lines is saying, "I'm always recklessly optimistic," right? Okay. And I would say that, going into this, absolutely, the mayor and I, we were going in with good faith negotiations. And we have to remind folks that, I was elected in 2020. And when I talked about this being our number one priority, there were folks in this community who laughed at me because they were hopeless themselves on being able to get this type of legislation through the finish line. I mean, we're talking about 2 decades of conversations of the city and the county going to the state asking for additional tools, additional revenue to pay for many programs and services that folks need. And I will tell you that one of the things that we learned going up there is that while we were up there, folks understood that we needed a statewide package. And I would say that the fact that we had Republicans and Democrats who voted for it, as well as voted against it, it lets you know that this was truly bipartisan. And yes, there are things that I don't like in this bill, but I guarantee you that there are Republicans in both houses who would say that there are things that they don't like themselves, but they knew that they had to get it done. And so I think that we've learned that we have to continue to have good conversations and not just make connections with legislators in Madison, but making connections with communities all across the state. We have to hit that reset button. We have to change the narrative of who we are, but more importantly, who we want to be in the future.
Absolutely. So with the 2 minutes that we have left, I guess without just the doom and gloom of how close we are to this fiscal cliff, but I think what is the vision if we actually can attain financial stability of like what Milwaukee County could be?
I mean, we're really talking about being able to, one, expand many of our health and human service programs. I'm gonna always go back to our behavioral health programs as well as our youth mentoring and making sure that we can keep our safe streets. We're going to be able to invest in our parks. When I say invest in our parks, not just maintaining our parks and making sure that people can enjoy the beautification of being outdoors, but more importantly, like having reliable facilities open, like our bathrooms, making sure that we can have a transit system that is not just efficient, but is rolling on time, that people can enjoy it, and we can create a new experience for riders moving forward. This is really going to set us on a financial path to invest back into our communities, because people have to remember, for the past 2 decades, we have had to start with, where do we cut? Where do we cut? Where do we cut? Because of the gap has grown so large. But now this is going to give us the ability to actually look at our services and figure out what programs that are making the greatest impact in our community can we expand and double down on to help us move forward and make progress.
All right. Well, we got to let you go, but thank you so much for spending time with us today. Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, always fun to talk to you. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
All right. When we come back, 3 headlines and a lie. Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristin Bry. She is Jane Matnair. I really like interviewing him.
He's really interesting, man. And again, I think it's just important to keep in perspective how long this mess has been this mess.
Yeah.
It's not just the last administration. This has been going on for decades, and everybody's been putting it off. I can remember when a big chunk of concrete fell off a building in downtown Milwaukee when Walker was county executive and killed someone.
Well, also, what's been the decision with the domes? Talk about deferred maintenance.
Seriously. And I don't think, just in my personal opinion, I don't see how you can bring them back.
Really?
I really don't. The design is outdated. It's old. It's been leaking.
I know, but it's so cool.
I know, but when is the last time you were there?
Well, I just admitted yesterday I still haven't been to the Milwaukee Public Museum, so I'm not a good.
But I think it's one of those things where we live here and we don't utilize it, we don't go see it, and then when time comes, we have to either fix it or move on. It's like, well, don't not have it. But I haven't been there in 30 years.
It'd be interesting to see in the, because along with our parks, we also have a lot of great museums of what the data is for attendance across like the domes and Milwaukee Public Museum and Discovery World and the Art Museum and what's the Children's Museum?
Betty Bryn.
And because I'm obviously in the mindset where I'm thinking about in a couple of years, like, where am I take this kid in the weekends
What are we
in
gonna
winter? What do we do with this thing in the middle of January? But yeah, it is frustrating, and I'm hoping that the objections from the Common Council members and the county board members who are talking to the media about how much they are not pleased with the bill as it stands, it's because they feel like they need to say that they're not pleased, but ultimately they will vote for it because the alternative just feels terrible.
Yes, because it is terrible.
So,
and that's what compromise is. We don't all always get everything we want. We don't.
No, I know, but it is also. Well, you heard what State Senator LaTanya Johnson did on the floor yesterday.
Yeah,
which I think who talked. I don't know which. Maybe Devils talked about it a little bit. I think Maggie talked about it, touched on it a little bit. Certainly, people were debating on Twitter. But it just stokes the it's unbelievable to me, the resentment that exists between the suburbs and Milwaukee.
But language like that does not help bridge that divide.
If you don't know what we're talking about, State Senator LaTanya Johnson on the floor yesterday said, F the suburbs.
That's not going to help.
And it's not helpful, but I would imagine that her frustration, because I was in the suburbs over the weekend. I won't say which one. We were at a graduation party. And it's just, it's wild to be so close to a place and have such a lack of understanding about it, of just the stereotypes of, when you tell people that you live in Milwaukee and their first reaction is, well, what about the gunshots? And it goes, that's not the entire city, right? And just the assumptions that they make and the stereotypes they buy into, but vice versa. Like, I have some stereotypes about the suburbs that, stereotypes come from a real place, but it doesn't apply to everyone.
No, it doesn't.
And so, but there's a reason I would prefer to live in Milwaukee and not Muskego. That is a dig at my father-in-law.
Fair enough.
Love you, Bruce. All right. So moving on to 3 headlines and a lie. This is our game that we play where we read 4 headlines. 3 are real. 1 is very fake. And Jane has to guess which one is made up. All right. Number 1, Joey Chestnut in talks to host new dating show called A Bite Out of Love.
Joey Chestnut, of course, the famous Nathan's hot dog eating champion.
He was here wasn't he here last summer?
I think so.
I feel like we
was something.
There was something where he ate a bunch of burritos. I feel like we talked about that. All right. Scholar, number 2, scholar finds doodles made by Henry VIII in ancient prayer book.
Okay.
Number 3, NASA is recycling 98% of astronaut pee and sweat on the ISS into drinkable water.
Okay.
And number 4, air passenger gets plane all to himself after waiting out 18-hour delay.
So my choices are?
We'll read through them again. Number 1, Joey Chestnut in talks to host a new dating show, A Bite Out of Love. Number 2, scholar finds doodles made of Henry VIII's, and made by Henry VIII in ancient prayer book. Number 3, NASA is recycling 98% of astronaut pee and sweat on the ISS into drinkable water. Number 4, air passenger gets plane all to himself after waiting out 18-hour delay.
I will go with the airline passenger having the flight alone as the lie.
That is real.
It's real.
That is real.
How did he swing that?
I'm not sure. If you've ever thought of having an empty seat beside you on a flight is the ultimate travel goal, try this on for size, an entire plane to yourself.
Wow.
That was a dream scenario for Phil Stringer, who was flying from Oklahoma to North Carolina on Sunday at 6:30 a.m. So there you go.
That's
There's a
crazy.
picture of him with the flight attendants, and he's outnumbered 4-1.
Wow. Wow.
All right. What's your next guess?
And then I will go with Joey Chestnut as the lie.
That is the lie,
That is the lie.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Although I might watch that show. I'm not a big reality show.
Bite Out of Love?
Bite Out of Love. Just, Overeaters Anonymous and with Joey Chestnut. But yeah, so that is the lie, which means that scholar finds doodles made by Henry VIII in ancient prayer book is real.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool. And that also NASA is indeed recycling 98% of astronaut pee and sweat on the ISS into drinkable water. It's a big deal for future missions beyond Earth.
Could become a big deal for Earth, ultimately.
Oh yeah. But I wonder what the filtration process on that looks like. Would you be a guinea pig on that?
It's got to be a long filtration process, and I want to see
a lot of sand, a lot of coal.
We're going through lots of layers here, lots and lots of layers.
All right, when we come back, it is that time of the week to do public cervix announcement with Dr. Kristin Lyerly. If you have any questions about health, your health, general health, or if you have a headline you want us to talk about, give us a call, shoot us a text, 844-967-2789. We have the top of the hour news. We'll be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
And pushed off, and then we sat on the tarmac for like 2 hours.
Frustrated with canceled flights, many like George Panetta are looking at other options.
We might just drive at this point and hopefully get our money back.
Several hundred flights are already canceled or delayed today. Jim Crisilla, CBS News.
Overseas, it was a destructive night in parts of France. Violent protests over the fatal police shooting of a 17-year-old driver. The French government is vowing to deploy 40,000 officers to keep order. There's a new government look at economic growth. Mark Hamrick of Bankrate.com.
First quarter GDP got a sizable upgrade, boosted by consumer spending. The revision puts annualized growth in the first 3 months of this year at 2%, compared to the previous estimate of 1.3%.
3 Florida men face insider trading charges. They made more than $22 million ahead of the move that took the media company owned by Donald Trump public. Checking Wall Street. Right now, the Dow is up 140 points. The NASDAQ is lower. This is CBS News.
Find great hires fast with Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
News is brought to you by Gingras, Thompson & Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in Southeast Wisconsin. The expiration of the air quality advisory is at noon.
It's been kind of a slow process here to see much in the way of improvement, but we're hopeful that a shift in the winds at these critical levels will help to shunt the direct feed of smoke into the area.
Meteorologist Paul Collar with the National Weather Service says possible rain could help shift the air. Waukesha, Racine, and pockets of southeast Wisconsin again registered unhealthy to very unhealthy air yesterday. In October, the city of Waukesha will demolish the empty Horizon West condo building after reaching an agreement with the Homeowners Association. Waukesha will bear the demolition costs and place a lien on the property with potential reimbursement from the condo's insurer. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
When it comes to achieving successful jury verdicts and settlements, one law firm stands out above the rest. Gingras, Thompson & Walks, a $6.2 million settlement for a woman permanently paralyzed as a result of medical malpractice. $4.9 million to members of a family injured due to the negligence of a truck driver and his employer. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks today, 855-954-1186.
All into Gingras, Thompson & Walks, GTWlawyers.com.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
If you're searching for top-notch electrical service for your commercial or industrial property, connect with Current Electric in Wauwatosa. Current Electric offers a wide array of electrical services to clients in Milwaukee and the surrounding areas, celebrating 40 years of energizing and illuminating lives in southeastern Wisconsin. Their dedicated team of superheroes can help with everything from parking lot lighting upgrades to office and business LED conversions, EV chargers to service upgrades. Call 262-295-2815 or log on to callcurrent.com.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I
saw it go.
How many plays have you done over the years?
Oh, many. Many.
I saw it go.
Would you do another one? Should we do a play?
I saw it go.
And put it up somewhere and do it as like a fundraiser someday?
That'd be great.
No business like show business like no business like
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin. I am your host, Kristin Bry. Jane Madnair is on the board, and it is Thursday at 11, which means it is time for Public Cervix Announcement, where we welcome Dr. Kristin Lyerly to join us to talk about women's health, headlines, things that are going on in the news that regards to your health. And we also take your calls or any questions that you might have. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Dr. Lyerly, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, despite this crazy air that we're having to breathe right now.
I know. How are you doing? So where are you right now?
I am in Green Bay, but
You're
the
in Green-
whole eastern part of Wisconsin is in terrible shape. This is the worst air quality we've had in this state ever since we started measuring air quality.
It's have you felt any different, or have you just mostly been staying? I've been trying to just stay inside.
Yeah, my air conditioning is broken.
Oh, God. No.
Yes.
Oh, no.
This is my fault because I was limping along and I knew it wasn't in good shape and I should have just fixed it, but I didn't. And so now it's hot and I'm in a tank top trying to get by with the curtains drawn and trying to avoid going outside and opening the windows. So, I mean, these are bad times. And, you know, to your point, you may not be feeling bad because of the air. Vulnerable people probably are. They may feel burning in their throats or in their lungs or in their nose, but this air is not good for any of us. So if you venture outside, it really is wise to don one of those KN95 masks and just protect yourself from all of those little tiny particles that can get wedged in your lungs.
And Dr. Lyerly, are those easy to get a hold of now, those KN95 masks? Do you know?
Yes, they are. And many of us have them still sitting around. So just, grab one, stick it in your car. You can use it over and over again. But just please be safe out there.
All right. Well, I was very interested when I saw this headline. And I think I'm interested because of the V word, which I now, as I say it, could be
vagina,
in this segment could mean a lot of different things, what we mean when we say the V word. But in this instance, I am talking about vaccines, because some people are very anti that. But I would be interested to know if there was indeed a vaccine to prevent cancer, how many of those anti-vaccine people would still be anti-vaccine? Because the next big advance in cancer treatment, this is the headline, could be a vaccine. And I was reading this and thought it was fascinating. But you made the point, as we were talking about discussing this, is that we actually already have at least one vaccine to prevent cancer, which
yes,
is
we do, which is the HPV vaccine. We've had it for over
which
a
I have
decade now. Me too.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, most people probably under 40 have that.
No.
No?
No, because it was politicized. Do you remember when they rolled it out and people were pushing back and saying that it was going to make young girls promiscuous?
Have sex. They're going to have sex.
Mm-hmm. So only about a third of eligible people have received the HPV vaccine, which is crazy because this is a vaccine that, as you said, prevents not only cervical cancer, but also head and neck cancers. The more we know about this vaccine, HPV is everywhere. HPV is the number one reason, other than smoking and drinking, for throat, head, and neck cancers.
What?
So,
I've never, your neck can get cancer? What?
Oh yeah, you can get cancer anywhere.
Like cancer in like the organs, like your esophagus and stuff, or like your neck muscles?
In your neck, like in your soft tissue in your throat, you can get vocal cord cancer.
And that can come from HPV?
You bet. It's actually
I had no idea.
It's a fairly common cancer in gynecologists because back in the day, before we wore masks to protect ourselves, we would laser HPV lesions off of people's bottoms and breathe in those fumes. And sometimes we, as doctors, would get HPV infections in our throats. And some of my colleagues have died, are suffering from HPV-related disease because of that.
My mind is blown right now. I had no idea. I mean, because I remember I was 18 or 19 when it was first coming out, and I got it. And also that was around the time when you started, like HPV, I think, transitioned from being the stigma of other STIs and turn more into like literally everyone has it because it's so contagious. And for men, it's hard to even track whether or not they have it. And so I just could always assume that it was a default that a lot of people, young people, especially now, just got the HPV vaccine. So that's news to me. And that HPV can lead to neck and head cancer. I had no idea.
So there's a great reason for boys and men to get this vaccine as well. Initially, it was just recommended for girls, and then they expand. And by girls, I mean like age 12 to 14. And then they expanded it to boys. And the idea was herd immunity, but really it does prevent cancer in men as well. So folks, if you're listening, talk to your doctor about the HPV vaccine. It truly could save your life down the road.
So then extending that to other kinds of cancer that they're researching that could be prevented with a vaccine, what does that look like?
So we should also talk about hepatitis B, because that vaccine has been around for even longer than the HPV vaccine. Hep B is a liver disease that can then turn into cancer. So that vaccine wasn't specifically developed to prevent cancer per se. It was developed to prevent hepatitis B, but it does prevent cancer down the road. So there's another cancer preventing vaccine that's been around for a long time. But these vaccines that we're talking about are very different. These are vaccines that are immunotherapy, using your own immune system to fight early cancers in your body.
So basically, like the vaccine would be training your like T cells, your like white T cells, to go hunt out like cancer cells?
Listen to you talking about T cells.
I took biology. There's some of that back in the cobwebs of my mind.
That's exactly what these vaccines do. And they're very, very personalized. So yes, and so they'll be expensive, and they're still in the early stages, so we don't have these vaccines yet. But as we're learning more, especially for people who suffer from genetic related cancer problems like the BRCA gene and Lynch syndrome, these people, depending on the variation that they have, could be up to 80% likely to develop cancer in the future. So we screen them very carefully, and they are really eager to see what happens with these vaccines. If we can find early evidence of cancer in these people, it has to be early evidence. These vaccines are not going to treat late stage cancers, because at that point, your immune system is really pretty compromised. So you have to have a healthy immune system. But if we are screening people and we're finding early evidence of cancer, that's where these vaccines, these personalized vaccines, can be really effective. And the evidence and the hope for this kind of treatment is really exciting.
Yeah.
Our guest is Dr. Kristin Lyerly. It is our public cervix announcement. Dr. Lyerly, I just want to reassure people that back to the HPV vaccine, in the 20 years or however long it's been around, no one has become magnetized after taking that vaccine.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
There is a vaccine adverse related database out there where people, if they receive a vaccine and they think that they have had an adverse reaction related to that, they can report it. That doesn't necessarily mean that your adverse reaction was related to the vaccine, but it's always good. It helps us gather information, because if we see patterns, then we can look more closely into them. So when we work together as a community of people trying to make sure that we have better healthcare for all of us, that's exactly what we do.
And it's so when you say what is BRCA?
It's the gene that's related to breast cancer.
That's what I was going to ask,
because as ovarian cancer.
Because that's what I feel like and maybe it's because I'm a woman, but women who the preventative measures as far as they get mastectomies before they even have any cancer, just because of how likely it is in their like whatever gene they have, or just like family history. And so is this that's what was going to be my question, as far as this could be something that you could do this instead of getting rid of your boobs potentially?
Well, not quite. So
Okay.
we screen women if we know that you have the BRCA gene. If you've got this strong pattern in your family history, then we screen very closely. So we do lots of imaging, and there are lots of visits with your provider, self breast exams, all of those things to make sure that if you do develop a cancer, we can catch it early. If we catch it early, that's where these vaccines can become helpful.
Okay. So it wouldn't, at least and again, these don't exist yet, but it's not something that you would take before there's any sign whatsoever of cancer.
Not at this point, although there
Okay.
are a number of different clinical trials out there that are looking at it from different perspectives. So there may be a clinical trial out there. It's definitely worth, if you are someone with these genes, it's definitely worth having this conversation with your doctor, with your oncologist, to see maybe you qualify for a trial. And if that's the case, you could be part of the future of medicine.
There you go. All right. Well, we have about a minute left, so I'm going to ask one pregnancy question before, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about Lyme's disease. Or is it Lyme or Lyme's?
Lyme.
Lyme.
Named
Singular.
after Lyme.
Singular.
Lyme,
No S.
Connecticut.
I don't know where I got the S from. Lyme disease. Can I, as a pregnant person, can you use a massage gun?
Where are
Has
you
anyone ever
using
asked-
it?
On my back, because my back is starting to hurt a lot. Like on my upper back. Is that okay? So, I got mixed messages. I got one for my birthday from my in-laws, and I'm very excited to use it. But then I had another friend who had a kid last year. She's like, I think I was told I'm not supposed to use that. So do you have any kind of definitive answer for me?
And your shoulders, I think you should use it, but I think you should also get like shoulder rubs from your partner, don't you think?
I think so too. Mike, are you listening? All right. Well, this is a public service announcement with Dr. Kristin Lyerly, our segment every Thursday where we talk about health, women's health. We take your questions. If you have any questions, feel free to text them in. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. When we come back, we're going to talk about Lyme disease and what you should know once we all go back outside about those little ticks that can get into your self and your pets and all of it. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The law firm of Gingras, Thompson & Walks has a track record of making life-changing positive differences for their clients. $5.25 million to a woman who suffered brain injuries and her husband passed away when struck by a drunk driver. $1 million to 3 different individuals injured by drunk drivers. $1 million settlement to a man injured in a motorcycle accident. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks, 855-954-1186.
Calling to win, Gingras, Thompson and Walks, GTWlawyers.com.
Weather brought to you by FreshFin, bringing you a fresh and healthy fast casual experience. Seafood, chicken, pork, or tofu. The bowl options at FreshFin are endless. Check them out at the corners of Brookfield, Bayshore Mall, East Side, and 3rd Ward, or online at freshfin.com.
This summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup.
Yes, that's awesome.
Starting at 6 a.m. Up North News, 8 to 10, The Earl Ingram Show. Mondays, 8 to 9, Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger. Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. 10 to 12, As Goes Wisconsin. At noon, Civic Media Network News. At 12:15, Town Call. 1 to 3, The Todd Alba Show. 3 to 4, Matt Flynn Direct. 4 to 6, The Devil's Advocates with Dom and Crute. And 6 to 7, The Maggie Dawn Show on 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. High temperatures reach up to 87 this afternoon under mainly cloudy skies with a chance for isolated storms. Southerly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Chance for scattered thunderstorms again tonight, lows around 64. Partly cloudy skies. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times again tomorrow. Slight chance for scattered rain showers.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and this is Public Cervix Announcement, our weekly segment with Dr. Kristin Lyerly. where we talk about health and health headlines and women's health. And I typically squeeze in a question about pregnancy and what I can and cannot do and what is and is not normal. But I saw this, and this is less of a breaking headline, but it just felt topical because as the weather is warming up and we live in a very outdoorsy state, it felt like a good time to talk about Lyme disease and ticks and how we can protect ourselves and how we can prevent getting Lyme disease. But I guess at the start, it's something that I feel like I've always known. Like I know Lyme disease is a thing. How does it actually, so it happens from a tick biting you and then it turns into an autoimmune disorder?
The tick is a vector. And when
Okay.
it bites you, you get this bacteria, and the bacteria causes the problem. And for most
it.
people who get Lyme disease, it's not an issue. You do a simple course of antibiotics, typically doxycycline, and you're good. 90% of people are done. It can take weeks or even months to resolve completely, but most people have no residual effect. Some people, however, end up with long-term complications. And the most famous example is Avril Lavigne. I don't know if you followed her at all, but her famous thing is she spent 2 years in bed and it ended up being related. Yeah, 2 years. Like she disappeared for a while. She's back now.
She is back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know any of her
bad
music
shape.
right now, but I just know that she's pops up every once in a while.
Uh-huh.
But that was because, and so it was because of Lyme disease?
It was because of Lyme disease. And it's strange. It can be really hard to know because you may not know that these ticks are small and you may not think that you are susceptible. Maybe you have a dog that was out in the wild and got a tick and climbed into your bed and the tick's in your bed and then the tick bites you and you just, it bites you in a place where you don't recognize it and suddenly you have Lyme disease.
And is it something that you basically don't really feel? I mean, like, because when you give it, one of the other topics that I put on here, I don't think we're going to get to it today, is malaria and mosquito bites. But I feel like with mosquito bites, you hear mosquitoes as soon as they're on you. You usually can sometimes slap them, and even if they bite you, like you killed it because and you immediately itches, and Is a tick bite noticeable?
Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, it depends. Where is it? What else is going on when you get bit? Is it in your waistband where you're more likely to be feeling some rubbing? Hard to say.
Okay. And so when it comes to preventing this, what are some of the things that doctors want people to know?
I'm so glad you asked. So there are actually quite a few ways to prevent it. This is peak season, so it's really important to know that if you go outside, you could be susceptible. So wear proper clothing, cover yourself. This doesn't sound cool, but like tuck your pants into your socks. I know.
Oh God, so hot. So
my
hot.
gosh. I mean, first of all, people are supposed to be wearing, and again, because what is realistic versus what is advised as far as is this when you're hiking? Or is this just in general when you go outside?
If you're in your backyard and it's nice and manicured, you can go barefoot and wear your sandals or whatever. It's all about risks and benefits. If you're hiking and there's lots of brush and you're in an area that just seems like there's lots of, insects and things around, in that scenario, you're going to want to take more precautions. So wearing the proper clothing, making sure that you are covered. Also, importantly, using a repellent with DEET in it, and you don't need more than 30% DEET. So the 100% DEET, that's overkill. That doesn't give you any more protection, and it's much more toxic than a 30% DEET. Also safe in pregnancy, Kristin.
Oh, good to know. That's something that I feel like I would have thought is similar to Roundup, where you should not be putting that on your body because DEET always just sounds very strong.
It is strong, but what's the alternative? Getting bit by a tick and developing Lyme disease.
Yeah,
So
I guess you're right.
if you use it wisely, apply it with care and wash your hands before you eat or before you put your fingers in your mouth. That's always good practice.
Yeah.
So you can do it carefully. Other things you can do to prevent getting bit by a tick: check your pets. Make sure that your pets have the appropriate antibiotic and anti-tick medication, so your vet can advise you on that. And then one of the most fun things to do is a tick check.
Is it fun?
isn't it? Where you
Is it?
strip down and you look at all those places, your waistband, your ankles where your socks were, all those hairy places on your body. You have your partner come over and look at your back. Like a tick check can actually be, it is
Sexual?
very important. It could be.
Intimate?
Sure. Your camping
what
tick
does a
check?
tick bite look like? So what are you looking for when you do a tick check?
You're just looking for a tick. And deer ticks are really, really small. The bigger
Okay.
ticks, the wood ticks, are not likely to be the culprit with Lyme disease. They can still cause disease and cause problems, but the deer ticks are the real problems. And if you find a tick, I was always taught, like, don't pull it out, burn it with a match. Don't do that. Pull it out. Who cares if the head is still stuck inside? No big deal. The head's going to go away. Just pull it out.
Just get it out.
Get it out.
You don't need to light a match like a bad bathroom smell. Just get the tick out
That's
immediately.
what I was taught. Like in Girl Scouts, light a match and then it never comes out that way. Just grab a tweezers and just pull it out.
Okay.
Yes.
So it will just look like a bug, like under your skin, kind of.
It usually its head is just there and it's small.
Okay.
Yes, it can burrow under your skin, but typically its body is kind of sticking out.
Jane is literally giving the heebie-jeebies signal.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And afterwards, if the tick has fallen off, often what you'll see is this bullseye rash. It looks like a little target symbol, but
Okay.
you can have other kinds of rashes too. So if you are feeling flu-like, headache, something's not right, and it's been this time of year, you've been out in the woods, you've been exposed, if you have any sort of an unusual rash, even if it's not a bullseye rash, it's worth getting evaluated because it could be Lyme disease. If you have it diagnosed early, if you treat it early, you're unlikely to experience that ugly sequela that can follow. So just be vigilant about it and be smart with your health.
All right. Be smart with your health. That is a good mantra. Dr. Lyerly, as always, so fun to have you here on Thursdays for a public cervix announcement. If you have any questions you want us to answer for next week, shoot us an email at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us. Appreciate you as always, friend.
Right back at you, sister.
All right. We're taking another break. When we come back, sports update with our sports reporter, Mike Clemens. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
This summer, 5:40 a.m. WAUK has a new lineup. 4 to 6, the Devil's Advocates with Dom and Cruz. 6 to 7, the Maggie Dawn Show on 5:40 a.m. WAUK.
CBS News special report. In a 6-3 ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court scraps affirmative action in college admissions. CBS's Major Garrett says justices overturned policies at Harvard and the University of North Carolina.
The value of diversity, the court has argued, isn't enough to justify the harms done to other students equally or possibly better qualified applying to those institutions.
Evan Kamenker, the former dean of the University of Michigan's law school, believes the case will have an impact far beyond college campuses, and the issue has deep roots.
Justice O'Connor, when she last defended affirmative action, made clear that race-conscious admissions wasn't just about diversifying universities, but it led to diversifying the leadership of our country, diversifying who's in government.
And in a unanimous ruling, the High Court sided with a former postal worker who claimed religious discrimination by the Postal Service. He refused to work on Sundays. CBS News Special Report. I'm Steve Kathan.
News is brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Walks, a statewide team of personal injury lawyers getting you the justice you deserve. Call 855-954-1186 for a free consultation.
For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. Here's what you need to know in southeast Wisconsin. Shifting winds are bringing some smoke relief to Waukesha, Milwaukee, and the entire area.
With the airflow switching around to more of a westerly direction in the mid and upper levels, that may help to shun some of the direct feed of the smoke.
That's meteorologist Paul Collar with the National Weather Service. Wildfires are still burning in Canada, but shifting winds and the chance of rain is cutting down on the air quality impact. A 72-year-old on a scooter was killed in a Waukesha crash yesterday. Police say at around 9 a.m., the incident happened near Salesville Road and Highway 59. At this point, investigators aren't sure whether the driver, who was wearing a helmet, lost control or was trying to avoid another vehicle. The Waukesha Police Major Crash Task Force is currently investigating. For Civic Media News, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
When it comes to achieving successful jury verdicts and settlements, one law firm stands out above the rest. Gingras, Thompson & Walks. A $6.2 million settlement for a woman permanently paralyzed as a result of medical malpractice. $4.9 million to members of a family injured due to the negligence of a truck driver and his employer. Call Gingras, Thompson & Walks today. 855-954-1186.
All into win. Gingras, Thompson & Watts. GTWLawyers.com.
Get ready to dominate the field like never before. Get to Soccer World in Brookfield. They have a great selection of shoes, apparel, and accessories to help kick your game into high gear. Soccer World's team of soccer experts have over 38 years of experience in the retail and soccer market. From cleats to shin guards, jerseys to coaching equipment, they'll help you stay ahead of the game. Plus, look to Soccer World for all your team business needs. Soccer World, 12615 West North Avenue in Brookfield, or online at soccerworldofbrookfield.net.
Tired of hearing only one side of the story? You want news and information from people who, like you, know what it's like to work hard every day and still struggle to make ends meet? Then tune in to The Rick Smith Show every weeknight from 8 to 10 p.m. right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Be part of the conversation. Tune in, turn on, and take back the American dream. The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Did you know your favorite shows and hosts are active on social media too? Find Civic Media on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook and be part of the conversation happening there.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristin Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are very excited to welcome back Civic Media's own sports reporter, Mike Clemens, on the phone. How you doing, Mike?
Oh, there he is. Go ahead, Mike.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, sir.
Yeah, doing good. It looks like the smoke has lifted up a little bit around the state. I think so.
That's,
well, that's good. Gosh, what time do you get up, my friend? I got an email from you you said at 4:00 this morning.
They're on the east. I'm covering the Brewers right now, and they're on the East Coast, and so I'm not on that trip. But sometimes you have to wait until you can get guys that are covering it for you, get interviews with players and things like that. And we do morning sportscast, midday, afternoons on the Civic Media stations across the state. So you kind of take a little nap, get up, do a little work like that, and then go back. So but hey, listen, they're sending me to baseball, football, and basketball games. How tough can it be?
That is true. That is true. When you get to do what you love, you won't work a day. Is that how that goes, or something like that?
Like that.
So speaking
Pretty
of that,
much.
how are the Brewers doing?
It's just interesting because we're in a part of the year. Or I don't cover teams about salary caps or really player salaries that much. But what's important is who's on your roster, and therefore if you have a winning team. And so, do you remember the people really upset with the Brewers when they traded their closer Josh Hader last year when they were in first place?
I do remember that.
Because
people were very upset.
They thought, we're in first place. But, the Brewers thought maybe they were a little too the smartest guy in the room. And they thought, he started to trail off a little bit. And if we trade him now, we can get more for it. Well, no one can remember who they traded him for. And the clubhouse just collapsed and they lost. And they ended up having to making changes. They changed out the guy who had been the general manager the last 5 years, David Stearns, and his assistant got the job, Matt Arnold. So what's interesting this week is the Brewers are in New York and they're playing the Mets. And about 3 years ago, the Mets got bought out by a new owner named Steve Cohen, who's one of these hedge fund guys.
Very wealthy,
right?
Yeah.
Well, he's spending $350 million this year alone on the roster, whereas the Brewers are the 20th most expensive team in the league. There's about $118 million. So the Brewers are battling for first in their division. The Mets are 17 games out of it right now.
Wow.
And they've got the most expensive team.
Yeah. Money can't buy everything.
Right.
Didn't we learn that with Moneyball, Mike?
Well, here's the other thing too, Kristen. I had not covered that much Brewers in the last few years. I mean, the first Brewers I was covering, I just got hired by a TV station in Milwaukee. It was the flagship for the Brewers. I got to go to all those World Series games.
Wow.
2021. So I've been doing this a long time. But if through COVID and those kinds of things, if you hadn't been around the Brewers much, and Craig Counsell, who's a really sharp manager for the Brewers, a couple of years go by and you start to notice all these things that he's using about on-base percentage and, hard contact with ball, soft contact, all that, and you start really saying that's all those Moneyball terms. That's all that metrics and analytics that these guys now use as managers to get the edge in the game. So I think with what Counsell's got for a roster, he's doing miracles to win the percentages. So he just beat the Mets again last night. I mean, the Mets, their owner came out and had a press conference yesterday, frustrated because the New York fans are screaming, like, what is going on? You spend all this money and all these teams, you jacked up the prices and everything, and we're 17 games out of it right now. So it's very interesting to see. There's a lot of those things that the Packers have said over the years about, when a player gets to be 29 or 30, we're not going to give him another 4-year contract and pay him $50 million. We're going to go with the 25, 26-year-old guy who's hungry, trying to get his next contract, and he'll probably be the better player. And the Mets are proving that point right now.
So speaking of the Packers and our younger new quarterback, have you been up to Green Bay and seen or have any updates on how Jordan Love is doing, or kind of, I know we are a little ways off from training camp or anything, but is there any Packer updates in the summer so far?
Yeah, I'll tell you this. In the summer of 2007, people wondered if Favre was going to come back one more year, and he did. And he had a great season. They went 13-3, but they played in the cold, and he threw that interception that was intended for Donald Driver. And the Giants went on to upset the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And then Brett held out the next year, and they went back and forth and the whole drama. And he went to the Jets, and then he went to the Vikings and all that. But I told people then, I watched that training camp, and I just said, I don't know anything about these guys. I'm just going to look at number 4 and number 12. And number 12 was the better athlete, the better quarterback. And so even though Aaron Rodgers waited another year, and Favre had a great season that year and worked his tail off, even his mom talked about, even when they win, he's still looking at that laptop every night as to what he could do better in those games. He really put everything into that last season in Green Bay. They went 13-3. Rodgers was clearly the better quarterback. I'll tell you, I went through the same thing last summer. And Rodgers is still the better thrower.
Okay.
He just is. And so Love is just not as accurate or has the different touch of the football that Aaron Rodgers had back then, or even now at 39 years old. But Jordan is a 24-year-old athlete. He's quicker, he's faster. And here's the other thing, Kristin. It has changed the dynamics in that locker room. Not that Aaron Rodgers is such a prima donna or anything. It's just the fact is he's a huge star. He's the 800-pound gorilla. And with him out of the room, it's all equal now. The locker room isn't tilted. They're all playing for each other. Everyone's on equal footing. That's got to help when you're trying to, find a new identity for your team, moving forward. I think that's a positive thing for what the Packers needed. Because you know what? If Aaron Rodgers comes back one more year in Green Bay and they have another season like they did last year, it's stale. It's just stale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Aaron recognized that too, which is why at the end of the day, he thought, maybe I need something different. Let's take this act to New York.
We're talking to Mike Clemens, who is the Civic Media sports reporter, just getting a summer sports update. And actually, Mike, what you just said, I feel like I read that. I forgot where, if it was Journal Sentinel or where I saw a headline and kind of skimmed it as far as exactly that point of there's a lot of young guys. There's a lot of young running backs and the wide receivers and stuff. And there's an intimidation factor that Aaron Rodgers brought of like needing to impress him, needing to not screw up and feel like you were going to be on his S list.
Yeah, don't tick off the king, right?
And now that there is, like you said, everybody's equal, everyone's young together, that there is less of a domineering force as far as expectations of your performance and more of we're all in this together. And so I don't know how other people work, but like that feels more supportive.
But I can tell you this for sure, Kristin and Jane. Matt LaFleur is not excited about what happened in this offseason.
Oh, really?
He wanted Rodgers back. Oh, yeah, absolutely. He wanted Rodgers back one more year. Because, you know, when they write your obituary, when they write about your legacy in the NFL, who wants to go down as the coach who couldn't get Aaron Rodgers a second Super Bowl ring? Or if you're the president of the team, Mark Murphy. And that was my take all through last year, and I really think the team sort of proved me out when it got to be this past off season. And everything that I have been told, that has been said publicly, and that I've observed, is that they really wanted Rodgers back one more year, and they would figure out a way to appease Love to say, you know what, you're going to watch a fourth year. But I think somewhere in there, Rodgers just decided, you know something, I already know what they're going to say to me. They're going to take away 4 or 5 of my friends, 4 or 5 of these veterans like Randall Cobb and Mercedes Lewis and some of these others. Although I really think LaFleur wanted Mercedes Lewis at 39 or 40 years old at tight end to still come back one more year. But LaFleur has watched those veterans leave the team and replaced by 13 draft picks. It's, you know, he's gone from 8th or 9th graders to all kindergartners. Really, it's like, I mean, it's unbelievable, and his coaching staff as well. So they're facing all of those challenges with a very young team. It's like the 90-man roster. About 30 of them are rookies. So he's got a really young team that he's got to try and get ready for the upcoming season.
And do you think there's anything, I mean, to be fair, like if you said, if that's your analysis that he wanted him for another team, but I'd also heard things as far as the conflict of how Matt LaFleur wants to run an offense to how Aaron Rodgers wanted to run an offense. Is there any truth to that?
Interesting you brought that up, because Mark Murphy did an interview about a month ago, and I could tell you, Mark is the boss, and so even though the team's PR department will say to him, hey, here's the way we want to talk about this right now. Here's your talking points. That doesn't stop the Packers president and CEO since 2008 from just going across the street, putting on a headset and talking to some guy that's covering the girls' state basketball tournament, saying, yeah, you know, we're okay with Aaron moving on. He's kind of injured, and you know, he's had his time here, and we're really behind Jordan Love. That was not what he was supposed to say. That was not what he was supposed to say. So about a month ago, Mark was doing an interview on a radio station in the state where he talked about, he was asked, so how do you think this is going to look this year? And he says, you know, I think we're going to get back to the offense that we kind of hired Matt LaFleur for, which is going to look like what the Rams were doing in 2018. You see these triple fakes and jet sweeps, and it's an offense that takes the pressure off the quarterback, and you run a lot of fakes, and you run the ball more, and you throw more to the tight end, shorter, more accurate passes, and you don't need to have a Hall of Fame accurate passer in it. And that's worked for the 49ers and for the Rams. And that's the guy that they thought that they were hiring when they hired Matt LaFleur, but it got away from that because they were running the Aaron Rodgers offense. So I asked LaFleur this about a week later, the next time we had a press conference, and you could see him kind of grinding his teeth.
God.
And he said, we don't have a Matt LaFleur offense. We run our offense, and we base it on if we got Jordan Love, if we got Aaron Jones, we base it on who we got on the team, and then we draw plays accordingly. So he's almost kind of contradicting what his boss was saying on what they're going to put on the field this fall.
That is very interesting.
Good insider scoop.
Good
there,
insider
Clemens.
scoop. All right. So the last question I have is if you have any thoughts or insights, because I saw this is just, you know, I don't know, some girl power, but with the new Bucks coaching staff, Sydney Dobner is promoted to become the first female assistant coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, which is a first in franchise history.
Awesome.
Which is very cool. Do you know anything
Pretty
about
exciting.
Sydney?
Yeah, well, she started with the team actually 5 years ago. So
Oh, wow.
she's been there and learning the ropes. And, you know, isn't that the smart way to do this? I mean, you know, bring this woman with this kind of potential in and be a part of the culture so the players get used to that, the other men that are part of the coaching staff. And now, I mean, the other thing is they just hired their first African American head coach of the team too, a team that's been
Yeah.
around since 1968. So that's a little bit more standard, but that is the next step that they've done. And so as they bring on Adrian, and they're bringing back Terry Stotts, who actually was a head coach for the Bucks for a few years when Herb Cole was the owner, and then he had a successful run with the Portland Trail Blazers. And Joe Prunty, who's a guy who was an assistant coach with Jason Kidd and then interim coach when they moved on from Jason Kidd. But for her to get that position, that really rounds out this new coaching staff. Here's the deal, though. They just passed a new CBA in the NBA, and Chris Middleton, Giannis's right-hand man, is up for free agency. A couple of other players, and then Giannis has got to make a decision in September. So there's a lot of drama we're going to be following with the Bucks in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. And you will be here to keep us with the inside scoops. Mike Clemens is the Civic Media sports reporter. Thanks for joining us today, man. And so happy you're on the team.
Thanks, Kristin. Thanks, Jane.
All right. Talk to you soon. All right. We got one more break. We'll be back in just a minute.
The summer heat can really get to you. Hot, sticky, you feel like you're melting. But Wauwatosa, coming in July, it'll be easy to cool off. Enjoy Ice Cream Social. This family-run, family-friendly business is more than just ice cream. It's a cool community hangout spot for friends and family. Let's talk about the ice cream. 16 delicious rotating flavors direct from the chocolate shop in Madison. The perfect way to stay sweet and cool this summer. Opening in July. Joy Ice Cream Social. Scoop, snack, shop. 8334 West North Avenue. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
As goes Wisconsin with Kristin Bry and Jane Matinaire.
Before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things.
But who doesn't stuff their pants and their shoes into a box full of work documents to sort out later? Every time I leave a job, that's what I end up doing with my box of work papers. Bras go in there and just, and I'll sort it out later.
As goes Wisconsin, weekdays 10 till noon on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Chance for isolated storms this afternoon. Otherwise, mainly cloudy skies expected. Highs around 87. Winds out of the south, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Chance for scattered thunderstorms tonight. Lows dip down to about 64. Partly cloudy skies. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times tomorrow. Slight chance for scattered showers. High temperature.
Wisconsin. I'm Kristin Bry. She is Jane Matinaire. And did we get fact checks?
We have a fact check on Mr. Clemens. Mike is wrong about the Bucks not having a black head coach until now. Milwaukee native Terry Porter coached them from 2003 to 05. It did not go well, but good checking in. Otherwise, especially that info on the Packers offense from the 608. So
I didn't even know that. I didn't even set him up for that. That was just something that I had heard in That is interesting.
That is interesting.
It's interesting to think about being Mike Murphy and being loose-lipped when you just go to like your kid's soccer game or something like that. And
Let me tell you some insider information that no one else
just
knows.
complaining despite your PR team being like, please don't talk about it this, or this, and talk about it like this. And then you do it with like reporters and then realizing, oh, I have to do that with everybody.
Oh, right.
That's something I would do. I am not the most tight-lipped person in the world as far as, and I think to a certain extent there is that as a double-edged sword as far as being very authentic and honest when I'm on the show and sharing my life and stuff like that. But as far as always knowing the threshold of maybe too much information.
TMI, thanks a lot.
It's not always, it's like, why is it a problem if I just tell the truth? It's like, well, sometimes not everyone wants it to be framed that way.
Exactly.
Well, I thought this was funny. So you know Ken Jeong?
Yes.
The actor who is, I think his biggest claim, like original claim to fame was when he was in The Hangover, 12, 13 years ago. I think Hangover was like 2009. And he jumped out of the trunk naked. But he is, what's great about Ken Jeong is he was a doctor. Like he was an MD doctor before he decided to go pursue acting. And then also has had like an incredible comedic acting career. But he has a new job, which is great, because sometimes advertising is lame. And then sometimes advertising is like, that seems like a fun job. So he's going to be Cottonelle's first ever advertiser.
I see the play there.
And so he's helping Cottonelle assemble a team of Marvel's The Avengers, but with butts.
What?
So basically, he is partnering with the brand to become Cottonelle's first, as I said, advertiser. And his new title was announced yesterday by Kimberly Clark, the Wisconsin company. So basically, the mission of this advertiser is to spread awareness about down there care by getting people to talk about their personal situations and feel confident to find solutions. This feels like the adult version of Everybody Poops. So as part of the campaign, this is reporting from the Apple Post president and Becky Jacobs, by the way. So as part of the campaign, which Cottonelle is calling advertising, they're really doubling down.
Well, I guess you may as well really own it if you're going to do it.
People can compete for $10,000 to join Jeong as brand ambassadors later this summer. Yes, you too can be an advertiser for $10,000.
And how do you qualify for this? What I mean,
I'd have to find the link as far as where the more information, but he's on The Masked Singer because I'm scanning. I have to read more because the rest of the article is an interview with him. And so we will link that to today's show notes if you are interested in becoming a brand ambassador.
Yes.
Yeah.
New opportunities.
And so I thought that caught my eye in this morning's daily briefing from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
This, again, sounds like another case of too much information.
Well, I think speaking of, jobs that sound desirable, a couple weeks ago when we talked about the cheese and pizza eater at UW-Madison.
Yeah.
That is now closed. I think they had like 300 people apply. And so it's a pretty competitive gig. So we'll see who ends up getting it. But so then what else is going on today? I guess as we wrap up today's show, any other breaking news that happened while we were on the air?
Well, there's always little things. There is something that just came across. So this anti-LGBTQ same-sex wedding case that's before the Supreme Court.
Oh, did that come out today too?
But no, but what I'm seeing is that case is based on a falsity.
What?
That this person never went to this web designer and asked her to make them a wedding site for their same-sex marriage.
And that's just coming out now?
This just showed up on the timeline. Again, the veracity of this, I am not sure about. But this may be something that we'll have to follow up on tomorrow.
That feels like as late to the game as finding out that George Santos is a habitual liar after he was already elected to Congress. It's like, how did no one fact check this
beforehand
before we got here?
Yeah, the man who is named again as this person who wanted this website made said no one has ever called him. This is the first he's ever heard about it. So this could be interesting.
That could be interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that more after the show. Well, depending on how that goes, but also as we'll have a little bit more to talk about with the ruling that did come out and any of the other rulings and anything that comes out on our drive to work tomorrow.
Right.
But we're going to be joined by Howard Schweber, who is a professor of political science at University of Wisconsin-Madison and is kind of a legal, expert on how the ramifications of some of these Supreme Court rulings. And so he will be here tomorrow at 11. And we will also be joined by James Maloof from WFHR, who's going to be our civic media crossover guest for tomorrow. So we'll go through the best, worst, and the weirdest headlines in his opinion from this week and play a little of a headline quiz. And then we're going to bring back Am I the Sphincter? We haven't done that in a couple weeks.
Oh, yay.
So if you want to submit an Am I the Sphincter, we can read yours at, you can either text it to us at 844-967-2789, or you can always email us at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us. As always, if you missed any part of today's show, you can go listen to it as a podcast.
Do.
And you can find that at asgoeswisconsin.com/listen or wherever you find podcasts on Apple and Spotify and all of the things. And your daily reminder to go download the Civic Media app.
Also, tomorrow we're going to have Brewers tickets.
And tomorrow we will have Brewers tickets for Monday's game. Thank you for reminding me that. So come back tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll do it again. We'll round out the week. And that's about it. Thank you for texting. Thank you for calling. Thank you for being part of the show. We'll be back tomorrow. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.